Hello everyone, welcome to my February book reviews, and I did get through 7 books in February, which I'm quite happy with, even though it was a short month. And the book I'm presently reading is The Warm Hand of Ghosts by Katherine Arden, and she did the Winter Night trilogy. The first book in that series is The Bear and the Nightingale. I gave all 3 of those books 5 stars. They were so good, and she is a wonderful storyteller, a great writer, and that particular series, the Winter Night Trilogy, took place in, I think, the 12th or 13th century Russia. It is based on some Russian folklore, and yeah, excellent series. So this particular novel takes place during World War I, and it follows a Canadian soldier and his sister, who is a nurse in the war also. And it shows the psychological effects and grief, etc., during something like a war, and how devastating war is for everyone. Excuse me. So yeah, I have about 100 pages left. I haven't figured out yet if it's going to be like a 4-star, 5-star, something in between. I have to see how it kind of finishes up, but she does really know how to tell a story. And then to get to the books I read in February, so a lot of these were based on winter settings. February was a perfect time for that because we had lots of snow, lots of storms. And the first book is by Darcy Coates, and she does a lot of haunted house stories. I have read one of hers, and it was okay. It was pretty good. Nothing too unique about the haunted house story, but it was enjoyable. And this one is Dead of Winter, and this takes place in the Rocky Mountains. So there are a group of people who are going to this isolated lodge in the Rocky Mountains. They all kind of won this trip. And on the way there, they end up, their bus crashes and it ends up in a ditch, and they're basically stranded. There's no cell reception or anything like that. So they all made their way to this sort of remote cabin that they stumbled across, and they thought, well, we'll just stay put here until we can get some help. And then it kind of stretches out, and no help is coming, and one by one people are killed. So yeah, it was quite, sorry, I got a tickly little throat here. So it was quite a thrilling book. It was a page turner. It was so hard to put down. And one thing I like about thrillers is ones that have very short chapters. These ones, each chapter was like 4 or 5 pages. And each chapter ended in a cliffhanger. So I'd be up, I'd be reading in bed and going, I really need to get to sleep, but one more chapter. So I read another chapter, and it's like, oh my God, a cliffhanger, and then I got to figure out what happens. And then I read another chapter and so forth. So I just blew through this book. It was just so hard to put down, and yeah, it was fun. There were so many red herrings. I don't know how many times I changed my mind thinking, oh, is this person, is that person, or whatever. I mean, it wasn't a huge surprise who it ended up being, but it was still such a thrilling ride, this book. So I give this a 4-star. I had a great time reading that. Though I have to say, there's a lot of body horror. So if you're not into that. And the next book is The Winter Ghost by Kate Moss. So I have read a handful of her books, The Taxidermist's Daughter, and then the Labyrinth, The Citadel, those 3 books in that particular series. And I read those years ago, and I do remember enjoying them because there's a lot of history with those. This is a shorter book, short for her, and it takes place in 1928, and Freddie Watson lost his brother in the First World War, and even though it's been 10 years, he's still really struggling with it. He decides to go through the French Pyrenees during the winter time, and he ends up in a car crash during a winter storm, and he ends up in this remote village. And he is taken in by this couple, and he ends up going to this kind of like a feast or festival during the evening, and something very strange happens, and he ends up fleeing with this particular woman, and then he ends up finding this this cave that sort of reveals a secret that happened centuries ago in the village. Usually Kate Moss, she puts these pictures of the region in here, like photographs of the region, which is kind of interesting. So she has those kind of scattered throughout. So I do love history, so the historical part was interesting. The character was kind of irritating. Didn't like the main character, but hey, it was okay. Kind of forgettable. Maybe about 3.3, 3.5 stars. Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, you're kind of thinking, are these real people? Are they ghosts? What's going on, kind of thing. This one is probably one of my favorite reads of the month, and this is by Jasper Fforde, and this is The Big Over Easy. So this is kind of an alternate reality kind of book, and yeah, he lives in Wales. The author lives in Wales. He's British. So yeah, in this alternate reality, nursery crime characters actually exist and live amongst us. And there is a nursery crime division, and Jack Sprat is the head of it. And people don't like to work in the nursery crime division. They think it's beneath them. So they're kind of ridiculed and that sort of thing. And then one day, Jack Sprat gets a call that Humpty Dumpty has fallen off a wall and has died. And he has to go and take over the investigation. And they actually have an autopsy picture of Humpty Dumpty in his cracks and the bullet hole and everything like that. So this is it's such clever humor. I love British humor, and man, it is just hilarious. The dry humor, I was laughing out loud so many times. The characters are just wonderful. You're kind of rooting for this nursery crime unit because they just get pooped on by anyone else. The mystery actually ended up being very interesting and fun to read. I just enjoyed this so much. There's another book in the series. I can't remember the name of it, but it has the 3 bears on the front. And yeah, it was such a fun read. I had been reading some very depressing books, and I said, I want one that will make me laugh, and this did it. It was so good. 4.5 stars. I mean, it was so fun. Yeah, I highly recommend this if you want just a humorous, fun mystery. It's so good. And this one is called Among the Living by Tim LeBon. And again, this takes place in an isolated Arctic island. Population's quite small, and there's 2 groups that end up on the island. So there's one group of environmentalists that are very concerned about global warming, and then there's this group, this company. There's 3 individuals in this company, and they're going to 3 or 4. Anyway, they go to this island because they know there's, with global warming, they can get at the minerals better. So they're paid by companies to go find these minerals to mine. So they're always kind of clashing, these 2 groups. So the group that's trying to find these minerals goes into this cave that's finally, they found it after all this global warming, and the snow cap is melting, and they go into the cave, and they find something quite horrific, and things go downhill from there. And then the environmentalists kind of show up, and yeah, they're trying to, I guess you could say, flee what was unburied or showed up after global warming, and yeah, is going to endanger everyone. And so they're all trying to get back to the village, to get back on the ships, and yeah, it was very exciting. And the weird thing is, this particular, I don't want to say it, I don't want to give it away, but this particular thing is already with us in a very small way. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, very exciting. Another one that was kind of hard to put down. Yeah, you really makes you think about the effects of global warming, and this is just one facet of that. So yeah, the ending was good. The ending was really good. Yeah, you kind of wonder, like, yeah, this could be, people could say, oh, it's not realistic, or oh, it's just, no, it's not going to happen. But hey, yeah, after I read this book, you really wonder, like, what can happen. So yeah, very good book. 3.75 stars. And then this is Kindred by Octavia Butler. So this is the first Octavia Butler that I have read, and this one people have given such high ratings for. So this originally was written in 1979, I believe. So this black woman is married to this white man, and they end up buying this house. And also now the blue, this woman starts feeling unwell, and she time travels back to the early 1800s during slavery. And she ends up on this farm, and she has to kind of cope with things. And whenever her life is threatened, she ends up going back to the present. So she's kind of going back and forth in time. And of course, like any book that's based on slavery, it's a tough read. A lot of trigger warnings for sexual assault, and how families were torn apart, and yeah, just the complete powerlessness of the slaves. So yeah, it was a good book, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. I mean, I know people absolutely love this book. I give it a 3.5 star. I don't know if it was the time travel stuff. I mean, some time travel stuff's okay, depending on how it's done. But yeah, it just kind of didn't work for me, I guess. It was heart-wrenching, of course, like any book based on slavery. But there's just other books I read based on slavery that I did like better. The one, I was trying to find it. I don't know if I gave it to a thrift store. I was going to keep it. It's buried somewhere. And it's called The Coming, and I just can't remember the author's name offhand. I'll try to put it below if I can find it. But it's called The Coming, and it starts off in Africa, how these the slaves were captured, and then it describes their journey to the Americas on the ships, and how horrific the conditions were. And then once they got to America, how they were sold off and bought. And man, that really impacted me. It wasn't a really long book, but man, it just it was written so well. So that is, I'll try to remember to put it below here. But that one was just so impactful. And yeah, so this one, I mean, it was just kind of fell short for me. Oopsie. And then the next book is called Berserker, and this is by Emily Laybourne. This is actually a YA fiction, but it was really done quite well. So this starts off in Norway, and there is this family, and there's 2 girls and 2 boys, I believe. The oldest is 19, I think it is, and the youngest is about 10. And their mother left the family and under certain circumstances, and they're left with this father. So this takes place in 1883. So this family has inherited this ancestral Viking curse, as they call it. Back in the day when the Vikings were raiding and that, it was great to have these certain characteristics for Vikings, like this particular 60, I think she's, how old is she, 18, 16? I can't remember now. She's a berserker, so when her family is threatened or someone she loves is threatened, she becomes this berserker and she gets all this strength, and she can kill if she has to protect her family. And her siblings also have certain powers, but everyone has a different type of power. And most people, it's a curse to have this. Back in the day it was great, but now it's a curse. So they have to kind of keep it secret. But one day her father is attacked by these three men, and she goes berserk and she ends up killing these three men. And then the law is coming after the family, so they have to flee Norway, and they make their way to America, and they're trying to get to their uncle's place in the West. And I'm trying to think of what state it was. Maybe was it Minnesota, Wisconsin, something like that. Anyway, I actually really enjoyed this. I really liked the characters, the family dynamics, the history, what they had to go through to get to America, the journey there, and they were being followed by the law from Norway. And yeah, it was really, really good. I give this like a 4.25 stars. I really liked it. And I do have the second book called The Ransacker. I believe there's just 2 books in this novel, but I was surprised, but I really, really enjoyed it. And then the last book is A Psalm for the Wild-Built, and by Becky Chambers, who's a sci-fi writer. And this is 150 pages, I think it was, or so. And yeah, this one is a very beloved novel. I do have the second book. I don't know if there's a third one or not. This takes place, like, I think about 1,000 years in the future, and a couple centuries before that, robots were doing everything, and they became self-aware at some point and said, we don't want to do this anymore. And the humans were nice enough and said, okay, oop, I gotta cool off. Oh, okay. So the humans said, that's fine, go ahead. So luckily, humans went in the right direction, and the humans only take up a certain areas of the planet while the rest is left to wilderness, and everyone's happy. It's sort of a utopian kind of society, and no one's allowed to go out into the wilderness where all these robots are, because no one's come back alive, basically. But this tea monk, so he goes around village to village with his little cart or whatever, and he sets up and serves tea and listens to people's problems and gives advice, etc. And he kind of becomes disillusioned after a few years of doing this, and he just feels this draw to go into the wilderness and just explore. And he ends up going into the wilderness, and he meets up with this robot, and the robot says, well, I've been tasked to check up on you. Like, we all promised we'd check up on you, and we're going to check up on you. So they kind of travel together, and they have some conversations about what it's like to be human, and the purpose in life, the meaning of life, that sort of thing. So yeah, it was okay. It did make you think about life and what our future will be like, and how we're going to cope. And even though they live in a utopian society, there's still people that are struggling and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was pretty good. 3.5. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. You know, kind of made you think. It was cozy. That's what I liked about it. It was kind of a cozy story, a low stakes. So yeah, but I am looking forward to the second book. So anyway, that's it for my February reads. And yeah, hopefully I'll finish up this book tonight. And so everyone have a really good reading month for March. And everyone take care and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.